Good afternoon. This is Patrick D. McCoy, and this is Across the Arts. And I am here with composer Damien Geter. Damien, it's so good to see you live in the flesh.
It's good to see you too, Patrick.
My goodness, we're here in Richmond, Virginia. Damien, rather, not Richmond, excuse me. Damien just had the workshop reading of his opera based on the life of the Lovings. As you know, that was a historic case about interracial marriage, Loving versus Virginia. So, Damien, I know that there's been a lot of press about this opera, but for the sake of people who don't know about the history or why now this is being brought to life in music, tell us a little bit about the origin of this project with the Virginia Opera.
Well, they actually came to me with the story already in hand, and I know that they were looking for a Virginia composer to tell the story, and I think a few names have been thrown around, but Jen Arnold, who is an advocate of mine.
Love Jen.
Everybody knows Jen. Sort of recommended me for this piece, and when they came to me, like half the work was done because they came to me with the story. And this is sort of in the wheelhouse of things that I like to write in terms of like social justice issues and civil rights. So I said yes. I didn't know how I was going to do it because my schedule was kind of packed, but I wanted to figure it out because also this is very special. This is my home state. I grew up about 30 minutes south of here. Virginia Opera is the first place I experienced opera. I saw Electra in 2000. I don't remember when it was.
That was my first opera.
Oh, was it?
That was my first opera, was Electra.
I wonder if it was the same one.
I think it was.
I bet it was. Oh, that's so funny. And of course, the Richmond Symphony was like the fancy orchestra, you know, in the big city. So to be home and to just kind of work with those two organizations and to be home with my friends and family who still live here, it's indescribable.
But you know, I was tickled as I was listening to the opera and taking note of the cast. I noticed that Richard Loving is a baritone.
Yeah, baritone.
And of course, you're a baritone, and I was sharing. That's how I first know you as far as your singing, and now you have this career as a composer. But to hear how you truly, in my opinion anyway, really write for the voice, it was just a joy to hear the voices, you know, in the context with the instrument and how each voice had a very distinctive role. So that's a credit, I'm sure, to you as a singer.
Oh, thank you.
So yeah. So talk to me a little bit about, as I just mentioned about your singing, but how did the composing really come a little bit to the fore?
Well, you know, I've always written music. I studied organ as a child.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, with Jamie Burnett.
I know Jamie. Oh my goodness.
He was my piano teacher.
Wow.
When I was a kid, and I remember him sort of encouraging me to improv and do things like this. You know, as an organist, that's a big part of being an organist,
Yes.
right? And so for me as a child, I would always look at music and say, well, these are the notes that somebody else has written, and then therefore I will play them. And I never thought that I could actually write my own things. So I've always composed little things here and there, nothing serious. I've written music for friends and they sort of played it, and then people tended to like those things. And then it's sort of how I got into singing. People started paying me for it, and I was like, all right, well, I'll do that. So, you know, I wrote an African American Requiem, and really from that point on, it sort of has taken off. Composing is not new for me, but at this level, it's a new experience.
Wow. I really like the role of the chorus in the opera, because it kind of reminded me when you have those turbo choruses like the mob. But I noticed it was like a contrast. Like in some moments, your chorus, not necessarily to say it was playful, but it wasn't as like with it was certain things like it was like a driving with the chorus. So talk a little bit about your elements for the opera. I know that, of course, in opera, some operas, you have a chorus that's very active. How do you see like the voices, the chorus, the accompaniment? How do you see those?
Well, what you experienced was one chorus, but it's actually two choruses because you have the law chorus, and then you have the chorus who are like the clerks and the townspeople later on in the opera and the other part, which I haven't written yet. But so that's how the sort of I'll call it the bigger chorus functions, but the law chorus, that's the stuff that you heard that would repeat the law in a very sort of static kind of way. So we have the law chorus, we have the chorus, and then we have the principals that are the principals.
Wow.
Yeah.
So talk to me a little bit about Mildred Loving. I love the soprano, who we heard.
Flora.
Flora, a beautiful voice. And another thing that I noticed, the two mothers to me, they were very, very distinct. Very much so. Richard Loving's mother,
Alyssa.
yeah, her role was not a long role in the opera, but I don't know if you heard me when she's out there sing.
Yes, I did. I heard
Because
she can sing.
oh my goodness, it was a different kind of warmth, and then the whole story about her being a midwife, and then basically showing that whoever we are, we would come in the same way, we go out the same way. So I guess that brings me as I kind of wrap this up because I know you have a busy thing. And first of all, be sure that you support Damien. Damien is homegrown and he's all over this country now. But we want to let it be clear that he's from Chesterfield County. We want to support him and support his work. And you heard him allude to about the African American Requiem that had his East Coast debut at the Kennedy Center with the Choral Arts Society of Washington under Scott Tucker at that time. And but now I go back to my point. Mm-hmm. Talk to me about, as you mentioned, you were raised here in Virginia. You kind of alluded to it in your opening comments, but this story, like even though we're talking about something in the past about the whole notion that interracial marriage wasn't something that were allowed to do. Mm-hmm. We have so many changes now with Roe versus Wade and things like that. Mm-hmm. All the things that are going on now. What are your thoughts? Like, I know you wrote the opera, but what are your thoughts on the whole storyline as far as like the interracial marriage? And do you foresee that with our politics now that they might go back to where they might?
Yeah. I think we're living in very dangerous times. And as we have seen, several things that have sort of put this country forward and progress in certain ways are now regressing, I think. I think we're living in the great regression, honestly. And so, but I don't think that interracial marriage is going to get touched because we have a certain person on the Supreme Court for whom that will affect greatly.
Yes.
And so I actually think that when people have personal experiences, and because of that, it's not going to go back. And when people have personal experiences with that, I think it lends them to have a softer heart and a better understanding about things. And so I actually don't think this is going to get reversed. I'm glad that this is a case, and a lot of people don't know about this case. Mm-hmm. We know about it. We grew up in Virginia, but I talk to people outside of Virginia, and a lot of them don't even know that this is even a thing, because how can we even fathom the fact that two people from different races cannot be together, right? So it was a very important case for this country to set the precedent for a lot of things to come after that, including same-sex marriage and things like this. So I'm not worried that it's going to go back because of the thing that I just said. Mm-hmm. But I am worried about other things. And I just have hope when I think about some of the younger folks that I talk to. I have hope for the future that in this country, because of the ways that they think and the ways that they are, that I'm not too worried. I think we're going to go back.
Well said. So as I mentioned, this was a workshop performance of the opera, and you have a couple more. And talk to me a little bit about the spring, because I was reading further about there's going to be a big production with orchestra. And to tell me a little bit about that.
With regards to this?
Yeah, if you can.
Yeah, I have to write Act 2. And then in the spring, in May, we'll do an orchestral workshop.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so that'll be whatever we don't catch in November, whatever I don't finish in November, we'll catch in May, I think, and then we'll do a workshop with the orchestra in the Carpenter Center here in Richmond on the stage. So I'll see how all of that stuff goes. The first act is already orchestrated. I mean, there are changes that I'm going to make. So I'm really anxious to get to that part.
So once all of that is done, do you foresee like the costumes and the scenery?
I don't have anything to do with that. I ain't got nothing to do with that. I don't want.
He's gonna write the music and let the people who do their job. But that's great. That's good.
They can do their job.
Tell you not to micromanage. But David, it's been a pleasure speaking with you.
Likewise.
Thank you for carving out this time with me. Again, this is Patrick Lee McCoy with Across the Arts. Make sure that you support Damien Geter's work. Again, he is just making all kinds of leaps and bounds with his music, and we are looking forward to the next step. Thank you.